In this section, we learn about the linked list data structure, which is a basic but very important data structure, and most of the questions in technical interviews are based on linked lists. So it is very important that you understand this concept properly and are able to write the code on your own. Okay, so now let's start. We have seen the list abstract data type in the previous section. It can be easily implemented using arrays. Another way to implement a list ADT is by using a linked list data structure. In a linked list, data is not stored in contiguous memory locations. This is an example of data stored in an array, and this is an example of the same data stored in a linked list. This data is stored in contiguous memory locations, while this data is scattered here and there in memory. Here the list items are stored in sequential locations, so the relative positioning of list items is implicitly maintained. We know that this is the first item, this is the second, and so on. In a linked list, the items are not stored in sequential locations, so the relative positioning of the list items is maintained with the help of links. A link is a pointer to the next item of the list. So we have these links here. Each link points to the next item. So with each list item, a pointer to the next item is stored. The list item together with the link is called a node. So these all are nodes. These nodes are the basic building blocks of a linked list. The nodes are connected together by links and they collectively represent the linear order of the list. So this first node contains the first list item and pointer to second node. This node contains the second list item and pointer to the third node, and so on. We just have to know where the first node is. All other nodes can be found by successively following the links. From first we can go to second, from second we can go to third, from third we can go to fourth, and so on. So while implementing a linked list, we can maintain a pointer to only first node of the list. And with the help of only this pointer, we can access all the elements of the linked list. We'll call this pointer start. So what is a linked list? It is a dynamic data structure that is made up of nodes arranged in sequential form. Dynamic data structure means that we can allocate the required memory while the program is running. A dynamic data structure can expand or shrink easily during runtime. So a linked list does not have a predetermined fixed size. It does not reserve any extra space in advance. It allocates memory for the next item as and when it needs it. In the case of arrays, the size of the array might be more than the actual number of elements that are stored in it, resulting in wastage of space. For arrays, we need large chunk of contiguous memory if many elements are to be stored. While in the case of linked list, many items can be easily stored even if contiguous memory is not available. This is because in a linked list, there is a distributed representation of elements. Elements are not stored in contiguous memory locations. And compared to arrays, insertion and deletion of elements is easier in linked lists as there is no need to reallocate or reorganize the whole list structure. In arrays, insertion and deletion is expensive since it involves shifting of elements. For example, in this array, if we have to delete this element 2, then we have to shift all these elements to the left to fill this gap. Similarly, if we have to insert a new element here between 7 and 2, then we have to shift all these elements to the right to make space for the new element here. Now, if array is big, then the number of shifts will be much more. And if each element of array is a big record, then copying that can be time consuming. In linked lists, there is no physical movement of data while inserting or deleting elements. So in linked list, insertion and deletion is easier. We can use linked lists to implement abstract data types like lists, stacks, and queues. Now let's see two disadvantages of linked lists. First one is that efficient random access is not possible. Means we cannot access elements of linked lists by using a numeric index. And the second one is that some extra memory is required for their implementation. This extra memory is due to the link that is stored with each item. There are different variants of linked lists. In this course, we'll study about these 5 variants, out of which this single linked list is the simplest one. So we'll start with single linked lists. A single linked list is made up of nodes where each node has two parts, the info part and the link part. The info part contains the list item, the actual data that has to be stored in the list. And this link part is a pointer to the next node of the list. This is an example of a single linked list with 6 nodes. The info part contains an integer value. This can be of any other type also. We maintain a special pointer variable that always points to the first node of the list, and we have named it start. This pointer is the identity of the list, and with the help of this pointer only, we can access all the elements of the list. We have to use the link value from each node to go to the next node. We start at the first node and we can move from one node to the other by following each node's links. So if we know just this pointer start, we can go to any node of the list. So if we want to access the fifth element of the list, we start here, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and we reach the fifth element. This is why in the previous slide I told that random access is not possible in linked lists. You can't directly access an element as you can do in arrays. You have to start at the first node to go to any node of the list. If the link part of a node is null, it means there is no next node. No next node means end of the list. In this presentation, we will denote a link that is null by using this shaded box. So we use null to denote the end of the linked structure. In this example, this is the last node, so its link part is null. For an empty linked list, the pointer start will be null. Now let's see how we can implement a single linked list in C++. This is the class node that represents a node of a single linked list. This data member info represents the actual data that has to be stored in the list. This data member link is a pointer and it will always point to the next node. In this constructor, info is initialized with this parameter value and link is initialized to null. So this was the header file node.h in which we have written this class node. In this header file single.h, we have written this single linked list class. This data member start points to the first node of the linked list. So each single linked list object will maintain a pointer to the first node of the list. We can see that this class itself does not contain any node objects. It contains only a single pointer to the first node of the linked list. These are the private functions that will be used by these public functions of the class. In this public section of the class, we have these member functions. This is the default constructor. Then we have the copy constructor and destructor. This function overloads the assignment operator. This function display list will display the elements of the list. Then this function count nodes will return the number of nodes in the list. This function will search for an element in the list. These functions are const because they don't make any changes to the list object. In the next lecture, we'll see how to write the definition for these 3 member functions. Then we have member functions for inserting and deleting nodes from the list, creating the list, reversing the list, and sorting the list. Now this is the implementation file of the single linked list class in which we have the definitions of these member functions. In this default constructor, we have initialized start to null. So when a new single linked list object is created, its start pointer will be null. In the next few lectures, we'll develop all the member functions of the single linked list class. Then we have this file demo.cpp in which we have tested the single linked list class. So here we have created a new single linked list object. In this infinite while loop, first we are displaying all the options, and then depending upon the choice entered, we call a particular function using switch case. We have options till 18. So when 19 is entered as a choice, we break out of the loop. If 1 is entered, we call display list. If 2 is entered, we call count nodes, and so on. So this is the code that tests all the member functions of our single linked list class. In the next few lectures, we'll develop and test all these functions one by one. In this video, we'll see how to traverse a linked list. Traversal means visiting each node exactly once. So we'll start from the first node and visit each node till the last node. Before studying traversal, let us first see how we can move a pointer forward in a linked list. So suppose we have a pointer P that points to this node. Now this is P link. It points to this node. Now if we assign P link to P, P will start pointing to this node. So writing this statement P equal to P link makes P point to the next node of the list. Or we can say that P has moved one node forward in the list. This is the statement that we'll repeatedly use to traverse our list. Okay, now let's see how we can traverse our linked list. We have to start from the first node. So we'll take a pointer P that points to the first node. To make P point to the first node, we'll initialize it with start because start points to the first node. Now while visiting each node, we'll print the contents of the node. Now P points to this node, P info is 10, so 10 will be printed. Next we write P equal to P link, so now P points to this node. Again we write this statement, now P info is 20, so 20 will be printed. Next again we write P equal to P link, now P points to this node. And now when we print P info, 30 will be printed. Again we write P equal to P link, P points to this node, and when we print this P info, 40 is printed. Again we move this forward, and when we print P info, 50 is printed. Next we write P equal to P link. Now P will become null, and so we can stop because we have reached the end of the list. So we have traversed the whole list and printed the list items. We can see that we are repeating the same statements again and again. So we can write this in a loop, and the terminating condition for that loop would be when P becomes null. So this is the loop for traversing a linked list. We take a pointer P and initialize it with start, and this loop continues till P is not null. When P becomes null, this loop will terminate. In each iteration, we are printing the value of P info and we are moving P forward by assigning P link to P. So this is how we can traverse a list starting from the first node till the last node. We can use the same loop to count the number of nodes in the list. So here we have taken a variable n and initialize it to 0. And whenever we visit a node, we increment the value of this n. So when this loop terminates, the value of n will give us the number of nodes in the list, and we return n from this function. Similarly, we can use this loop to search for an element in the list. We take this variable position and initialize it to 1. We'll start at the first node and we'll move forward in the list with the help of this statement. When we move to the next node, we increment the value of this variable position also. When we visit a node, we check its info value, and when we find the value that we are searching, we'll return value of position from this function. Now if this return is not executed in any of the iterations, then it means that the search value is not present in the list. In that case, we can return 0 from here. Now let us go to our program and see the member functions for displaying a list, counting number of nodes, and searching for an element in the list. Now you can start coding along with me. So the first file that you need to write is this header file node.h, which contains the definition of the node class. We have seen this in the previous lecture. Next you need to create this header file single.h that contains the definition of this single linked list class. We have this data member start here that will always point to the first node of the list. Then we have this private member function is empty, and in this public section we have declarations for the default constructor and these three functions: display list, count nodes, and find. As we move ahead in this section, we'll add more member functions in this class. But for now, let's start with this class definition. Our next file that you need to write is this implementation file, in which you'll write the definitions of the member functions. Here we have included these header files node.h and single.h. Now first you have the default constructor in which you initialize this pointer start to null. So when you'll create a single linked list object, its start will be null. Then you have the short bool function that returns true if start is null. Otherwise it returns false. This is a private member function that will be used by public member functions. Now we have this function display list that displays all the elements of the list. If the list is empty, we'll just print this message and return. So here we have called this function is empty. If the list is not empty, we'll display all the elements of the list starting from the first element till the last element. We have already seen how this loop works. Now this function count nodes returns the number of nodes in the list. We have seen that this function also works by traversing the list and increasing the node count as we visit each node. Then this function find will return 0 if the element x is not present in the list. Otherwise, it will return the position of element x in the list. We have taken this variable position and initialized it to 1, and we increment it each time we visit a node. This pointer p is initialized with start, and in this loop we are visiting each node starting from the first node. Whenever we visit a node, we check info value of that node, and if info of that node is equal to x, then we return the value of this variable position from this function. If this return is not executed in any of the loop iterations, then the control will come here after p becomes null. It means that we have reached the end of the list and x was not found in the list. So in that case, we return 0 from here, which indicates absence of x in the list. So this was the implementation file. So you have created your single linked list class. Now you need to create an object and invoke these member functions. So the next file that you have to write is this file demo.cpp, where you will test the class that you have written. We create an object here. Then here we have declared some variables that we'll need. Then we have this infinite while loop. In this loop, first we display these options: display list, count the number of nodes, search for an element, and quit. After that, we ask the user to enter his choice. If user enters 19, we break out of this loop. Otherwise, control goes in this switch case statement, where in case 1, we have called this function display list. In case 2, we have called this function count nodes. In case 3, we have called this function find. So here first we are asking the user to enter the element that needs to be searched. Then we call this function find and store the return value in this variable position. And then we print the appropriate message depending on the value of position. In default case, we just print wrong choice. And here after the while loop ends, we print this message. So we have written these 4 files: node.h, single.h, singlelist.cpp and demo.cpp. Now we can run this program. So first we choose option 1. It is displaying that the list is empty. Next we choose option 2. Number of nodes in the list is 0. Next we choose option 3. We enter an element. 2 is not in the list. Since our list is empty, whatever element we search, it will say that it is not found in the list. We choose option 19 and exit. In the next few videos, we'll see how to insert new nodes in our list. Before that, make sure that you write these files and run your program.
Before studying insertion and deletion, let's see how we can move in a linked list and find pointers to some particular nodes. In this video, we'll see how we can find pointer to last node, to second last node, to a node with particular info, to predecessor of a node with particular info, and to a node at a particular position. So first, let's find out pointer to last node. This is the last node. So we need a pointer to this node. This is the code that will give us pointer to this last node. Now while displaying list and counting nodes, we had seen that the loop condition was p is not equal to null. So there the loop stopped when p became null. Now here the loop will stop when p link will become null. And p link will become null when p is pointing to the last node, because the link part of last node is null. So this loop will stop when p is pointing to the last node. Now let's find out pointer to the second last node. This is the second last node of the list. So we need a pointer to this node. This is the code that will give us the pointer to second last node. Now here the loop condition is p link is not equal to null. So this loop will stop when this p link becomes null. And this p link will become null when p is pointing to the second last node of the list. Because p link is this and p link is this. So when this loop stops, p will be pointing to the second last node of the list. Now suppose we are given a value x and we have to find pointer to a node that contains this value x. And suppose this value of x is 30. So that means we have to find pointer to this node in the list. This is the code that gives us a pointer to the node that contains value x. We have already seen this code while we were learning searching in a linked list. There we were interested in finding out the position of the node that contains value x. Here we are finding out the pointer to the node that contains value x. So when this loop stops, p will be pointing to the pointer that contains value x, and if x is not present in the list, then p will be null. Now we'll find pointer to predecessor of a node with particular info. Suppose we are given a value x, then we have to find pointer to predecessor of a node that contains x. So if x is 30, then we need pointer to this node, because this is the node that contains 30 and this is the predecessor of the node that contains 30. So this code will give us the pointer to this node. Here inside the loop, we are checking p link info instead of p info, and this loop condition is p link is not equal to null. So this loop will stop when p points to the last node, because we don't want these loop statements to work when p is pointing to the last node. So let's see how this loop works. Now initially p is start, p link is not null, so we check p link info. P link info is 20 and it is not equal to x, so break is not executed, p is moved forward. Now p link is not null, we check p link info. P link info is 30 and it is equal to x, so this break is executed and this loop is terminated. So we can see that when this loop terminates, p points to the node that is the predecessor of the node that contains value x. Now let's see how we can find pointer to a node at a particular position. These are the positions of nodes in this list. Suppose we are given a value k and we have to find pointer to a node that is at kth position. So if k is 3, we have to find pointer to this node. This is the code that will give us this pointer. Let's see how this code works. Now initially p is start and I is 1. Now I is less than k and p is not equal to null, so p is moved forward. Then I is incremented. Now again I is less than k and p is not equal to null, so p is moved forward and I is incremented. Now I is equal to 3. So this loop terminates. And we can see that when this loop is terminating, p is pointing to the node at the kth position. This loop condition p is not equal to null we have placed to terminate the loop in case when there is no kth position in the list. That is, the number of nodes is less than k. For example, if k is 10 and there are only 5 nodes in the list, then this condition will terminate the loop.
In this lecture, we'll see how we can insert a new node in a single linked list. These are the different cases of insertion. We'll see all these cases one by one. To insert a new node, we'll allocate a node and make this pointer temp point to that new node. This is the node class constructor. So this data will be used to initialize the info part, and the link part of the new node will be initialized to null. Now first let's see how we can insert a new node in the beginning of the list. We allocate a new node, make this pointer temp point to this node. Now after insertion, this node will be the first node. So start should point to this node, and this node will become the second node of the list. So the link of this node should point to this node. So first we make link of this node point to this node. We write temp link equal to start because this node is pointed by start. Next, we change start and make it point to this node. So we write start equal to temp. So these are the two statements that we need to write for inserting a new node in the beginning of the list. The order of these two statements is important. Let's see what happens if we change their order. So here first we are writing start equal to temp. So start points to this node. Now we can see that the link to this part of the list is broken. And now if we write temp link equal to start, this node will start pointing to itself. And whenever we process the linked list, we'll be stuck in an infinite loop. So this is the correct way of inserting a new node in the beginning of the list. Now let's see how we can insert a new node in an empty list. For an empty list, start is null. We allocate this new node. Now this is the only node of the list, so it is the last node, and its link part should be null. So we write temp link equal to null. Now instead of null, we can write here start because start is also null. So this becomes temp link equal to start. Next we change start and make it point to this node. So we write start equal to temp. We can see that we had written the same two statements for inserting a new node in the beginning of the list. So these two cases can be handled using these same statements. When we study doubly linked list or circular linked list, we can see that the insertion code in these two cases will be different. But in single linked list, we can handle these two cases in the same way. Now let's see how we can insert a new node at the end of the list. For this, we need a pointer to the last node of the list. We have already seen how we can find this pointer. So this code gives us a pointer to the last node of the list. After finding this pointer, we allocate this new node. Now link part of this node should point to this node. So we write plink equal to temp. Now this node becomes the last node of the list, so its link part should be null. So we write temp link equal to null. In our program, we will not need to write this as any new node that we allocate has its link part initialized to null. Now let's see the code for all these insertions in our program. In this class, we have added declarations of these three member functions: insert at beginning, insert at end, and create list. Now let's see the definitions in the implementation file. This is the function for inserting a new node in the beginning of the list. Here we are allocating a new node, and then we are writing these statements: temp link equal to start and start equal to temp. This function will also work when we have to insert a new node in an empty list, because for an empty list, start will be null, so we'll have temp link equal to null and start equal to temp. Then this function insert at end will insert a new node at the end of the list. If the list is empty, we'll call this function insert at beginning and we'll return. Otherwise, we'll allocate a new node and then we'll find a pointer to the last node of the list. Then we'll write plink equal to temp, where this p is a pointer to the last node of the list. So this temp is inserted after the last node, and now it becomes the last node of the list. The link part of temp will be null because in our constructor we have set it to null. Now in this function create list, we'll create a new list. Here we are entering the number of nodes that we want in the list, and here we have put a simple check on n. For inserting the first element, we call this function insert at beginning, and then rest of the elements we enter with the help of this loop. We take a pointer p and initialize it with start. Then in this for loop, this I goes from 2 to n because we have already inserted the first element here. So we want this loop to execute only n minus 1 times. Now here we get the element Then we allocate a new node with this data as the info value. Then we add this node temp after P by writing this P link equal to temp. Now P was pointing to start. So this node temp will be added as the second node. Then we change P by writing this. So P now points to the newly inserted node. Now in the next iteration, again a new node will be allocated. Now this time P points to the second node. So this temp will be added as the third node. And then P will be made to point to the third node. So this is how we'll create the list by adding new nodes at the end. Now let's see the function calls. We've called this function createList here just after creating this new object. Then here in options 4 and 5 we are displaying insert in empty list or insert in beginning of the list and insert a node at the end of the list. So we have called these functions in cases 4 and 5. Now let's run this program. The createList function is being executed. So it is asking for the number of nodes. Now we'll display the list. So this is our list. Now we'll insert a new node in the beginning of the list. So we'll choose option 4. Again we display the list. So this new element was inserted in the beginning of the list. Now we'll insert a new node at the end of the list. So we'll choose option 5. We can see that it is inserted at the end of the list. Now let us check our count nodes function also. So we choose option 2 and we can see that the number of nodes is 7. Let's check the find function also. So we choose option 3. 3 is present at position 4. We can see 3 is present at position 4. We'll enter an element that is not present in the list and it is displaying that it is not there in the list. Now we'll see how we can insert a new node between two nodes of a list. Suppose we have to insert a new node between these two nodes. For that we need a pointer to this node. So we allocate a new node. Now for this node to come in between these two nodes, link part of this node should point to this node and link part of this node should point to this node. So first we'll make link part of this node point to this node. We'll write temp link equal to p link. And then we'll make link part of this node point to this node. So we'll write p link equal to temp. So these are the two statements that we need to write to insert this new node in between these two nodes. Now the order of these two statements is important. Let's see what happens if we change their order. Suppose first we write p link equal to temp. So we can see that the link to this part of the list is broken. And now if we write temp link equal to p link, then this node will start pointing to itself. So this is the correct way to insert a new node in between the two nodes of the list. Now we'll see how we can insert a new node after a given node, how we can insert a new node before a given node, and how we can insert a new node at a given position. These two statements of insertion will be the same in all three cases. The only difference will be in how we find this pointer p. First, let's see how we can insert a new node after a given node. Suppose we are given a value x and we have to insert a new node after the node that contains x. Now if x is 56, then in this list we have to insert a new node after this node. That means we have to insert a new node between these two nodes. And for that we need a pointer to this node. We have already seen how we can find a pointer to a node that contains value x. After finding this pointer, we allocate a new node and insert it here by writing these two statements of insertion. So this is how we can insert a new node after a given node. Now let's see how we can insert a new node before a given node. Suppose we are given this value x and we have to insert a new node before the node that contains x. If x is 45, then in this list we have to insert a new node before this node. That means we have to insert a new node between these two nodes. And for that we need a pointer to this node. So if we have to insert a new node before a node that contains value x, we need a pointer to the predecessor of the node that contains x. We have already seen how we can find this pointer. So this code will give us the pointer to the predecessor of the node that contains x. After finding this pointer, we allocate a new node and insert it here by writing these two statements of insertion. So this is how we can insert a new node before a given node. Now let's see how we can insert at a given position in the list. Suppose we are given a value k and we have to insert a new node at the kth position in the list. If value of k is 4, then in this list we have to insert a new node here. So the position of the new node will become 4, position of this node will become 5, and position of this node will become 6. So that means we have to insert a new node between these two nodes. And for that we need a pointer to this node. So if we have to insert a new node at kth position in the list, we require a pointer to k minus 1th node of the list. We have already seen how we can get this pointer. So this code will give us a pointer to k minus 1th node of the list. After finding this pointer, we allocate a new node and then insert it here by writing these two statements of insertion. So now this new node becomes the 4th node, this node becomes the 5th node, and this node becomes the 6th node. Now let's see the functions for all these insertions in our program. So here I've added declarations for these three member functions: insert after, insert before, and insert at position. Now let's see the definitions. This function insert after will insert a new node after the node that contains this value x. So here first we find pointer to the node that contains x. After this loop terminates, if p is null, it means that x is not present in the list. Otherwise, p will point to the node that contains x, and in that case we allocate a new node and insert it by writing these two statements. Then this is the function insert before that will insert a new node before the node that contains this value x. And we have seen that in this case we need a pointer to the predecessor of the node that contains x. So here we are finding that pointer. After this loop, if p-link is null, it means that x is not present in the list. If p-link is not null, then we'll allocate a new node and then insert it by writing these two statements. Now before doing all this, we have put two checks here. If the list is empty, then we'll just return, because in that case we don't want this statement to execute, because start will be null, so p will be null, and accessing p-link will give us error. Then if x is present in the first node, we have to insert the new node in the beginning of the list, and in that case start has to be updated. So this case also we have handled separately. So this was the function insert before. Now let's see this function insert at position. This function will insert a new node at the kth position in the list, and in this case we have to find a pointer to the k minus 1th node of the list. So here in this loop we are finding that pointer. Now if user enters a large value of k, then p will become null. So in that case we print this message. For example, if the list contains only 6 nodes and the user wants to enter at 10th position, then the message will state that you can insert only up to 7th position. Now if p is not null, we allocate a new node and insert it by writing these two statements. Then if the node has to be inserted at the first position, in that case we have to update the value of start. So this case we have handled separately. Now let's go to demo.cpp to see the function calls. We've called these functions in cases 6, 7 and 8. So here we have called this function insert after in case 6. In case 7 we have called this function insert before, and in case 8 we have called this function insert at position. Now let's run this program. So initially this is our list. Now we'll choose option 6. We want to insert element 33 after this element 3. Let's see. So this 33 was added after 3. Now we choose option 7. We want to insert element 55 before node 5. We can see that 55 was inserted before 5. Now we choose option 8. We want to insert element 67 at position 4. You can see 67 was added at position 4. Again we choose this option 8. We want to insert 45 at position 10. This 45 was inserted at the last position because there were 9 nodes in the list. Again we choose this option 8. We want to insert 37 at position 15. And it is saying that you can insert only up to 11th position. In this video, we'll see how to delete a node from a single linked list. These are the different cases that we'll see. Deletion of first node, deletion of the only node, deletion in between the list, and deletion at the end. For deleting a node from a linked list, first we have to rearrange the links so that the node is logically removed from the list. And then we'll physically remove the node by using the delete statement. So in most of the cases, we'll take a pointer temp and make it point to the node that is to be deleted. After that, we'll rearrange the links and remove this node logically from the list. And then we'll delete this pointer. Now let's see how we can delete the first node of the list. This node has to be deleted. So temp points to this. We write temp equal to start. Now after deletion, start should point to this node. So the address of this node should be there in start. So we'll update start and write start equal to start link. So start now points to this node, and this node is not a part of our list. We can physically remove it by writing this delete statement. So this is how we can remove the first node of the list. Now we will see how we can delete the only node of the list. Temp points to this node. For deletion of this node, start should be made null. So we write start equal to null. Now instead of null, we can write start link because initially start link was null. Now this node is not a part of our list and the list has become empty. We can physically remove this node by writing delete temp. We have seen that in the case of deletion of first node also, we had written the same statements. So we can use these same statements for handling these two cases. Now let's see how we can delete a node that is in between the list nodes. Suppose we have to delete this node from the list. For that, we need a pointer to the predecessor node. So we need a pointer to this node. So first we'll find a pointer to the predecessor of the node that has to be deleted. Now we'll make temp point to this node. So we'll write temp equal to plink. Now for removing this node from the list, the link part of this node should point to this node. So we will write plink equal to temp link. So now this node is not a part of the list. After this, we'll physically remove this node by writing this statement. So this is how we can delete a node that is in between the list nodes. Now let's see how we can delete the last node of the list. To delete the last node of the list, we need a pointer to the predecessor node. So we need a pointer to the second last node of the list. Temp will point to this node. So we'll write temp equal to plink. Now after deletion, this node will become the last node of the list. So its link part should be null. So we'll just write plink equal to null. So now this is the last node of the list and this node is not a part of the list. Now here instead of null, we can write temp link because temp link is also null. Now after this, we'll physically remove this node by writing this statement. We can see these three statements are similar to the statements that we had written for this case of deletion in between the nodes. So these two cases can be handled in the same way. Now let's see the functions in our program. Here in this class, I've added these three function declarations: delete first node, delete last node, and delete node. Let us see the definitions. This function delete first node will delete the first node of the list. If the list is empty, we'll just return. Otherwise, we'll make temp equal to start and then make start point to the second node of the list by writing this statement start equal to start link and then we'll physically delete this node by writing this delete statement. Then this is the function delete last node that will delete the last node of the list. If the list is empty, we'll just return. If the list has only one node, then we'll delete that node and make start equal to null and return. Otherwise, we'll find a pointer to the second last node of the list. So after this loop terminates, p will point to the second last node of the list, and we'll make temp point to last node of the list by writing temp equal to plink. And then we put null in link of second last node. So the last node is deleted and the second last node becomes the new last node of the list. And then we physically remove the last node by writing delete temp. Now this is the function delete node that will delete a node that contains value x. If the list is empty, we'll just return. If x is present in the first node, then it means that we have to delete the first node. So we'll do that by writing these statements and return. Now if the node to be deleted is in between the list or at the end of the list, then first we'll find a pointer to the predecessor of the node that has to be deleted, and then we'll delete the node. So after this loop, if plink is null, it means that element x is not present in the list. So we'll print this message. If plink is not null, then p points to the predecessor of the node that contains x. So we write temp equal to plink. Temp points to the node that has to be deleted. Then we remove temp from the list by writing this, and we physically delete temp by writing this delete statement. We have called these functions in cases 9, 10 and 11. So here we have called this function delete first node, here delete last node, and here delete node. Now let's run this program. We display the list. We choose option 9. And we can see that the first node has been deleted from the list. Now we choose option 10. And now we can see that the last node has been deleted from the list. We choose option 11. We want to delete node 4. Node 4 has been deleted from the list. Again, we choose option 11. We try to delete node 20. And it is displaying that element 20 is not present in the list. In this lecture, we'll see how to write the copy constructor, destructor, and the overloaded assignment operator for our linked list class. First, let's see why we need these functions in our class. We have this code here in demo.cpp file. We have created this object L1, and then here we have created two more objects L2 and L3 by copying this object L1. Right now, we have not defined any copy constructor for our class. So compiler will synthesize a copy constructor, and that copy constructor will be used here for copying this object L1. After this, we have displayed these three lists. Then we delete last node from this list L1. Then again, we have displayed these three lists. Now let's run this program and see what happens. So initially, these are the three lists. After the delete last node function was called, these are the three lists. We can see that the last node of L1 was deleted, but L2 and L3 also don't have the last node. Now let's change this to delete first node. Again, let's run this. Now this time there was a problem when we ran the program. This is because what we need is a deep copy, while the synthesized copy constructor simply performs a bit-by-bit copy of the data members. We have this start pointer as the data member in the class. So that start pointer is copied, and so any list that is created by copying actually has the same address in start, and so has the same list nodes. So this is what happens in the program. Start data member is copied, and so start of all the three list objects contain the same address and hence point to the same node. So when we deleted the last node from this list, the same effect was seen for these two lists also. When we deleted the first node from this list L1, this node was deleted, and was deallocated using the delete statement, while these two lists still pointed to that deallocated memory. And so we had a problem in our program. Now this is the type of copy that we need. Each list should have its own nodes and the info part should be copied. So we need to write our own copy constructor for this. Writing your own copy constructor is important because copying not only occurs when you directly make a copy of an object, it also occurs when you pass an object by value or when you return an object by value. So now let's see the code for the copy constructor. So this is the code for our copy constructor. This is the object that has to be copied. The parameter to copy constructor should be a reference type. We can't pass the argument by value because pass by value means copying the object, which is done by the copy constructor. So passing the argument by value in copy constructor will result in a call to copy constructor and thus will lead to infinite recursion. Then copying an object should not change the object, so the parameter is declared const. And this also allows copying const objects using the copy constructor. Then if the list is empty, then we'll just make start of our list equal to null and return. Otherwise, we'll take two pointers p1 and p2. p1 is initialized with start of this list that we are going to copy. Then we allocate a new node with info equal to p1 info and we'll make start of our list and p2 point to this new node. Then we move p1 forward. And then we have this loop which executes till p1 is not null. Inside this loop, we allocate a new node and make p2 link point to it. Then we move p1 and p2 forward. Let's see on the slide how this code works. So suppose we have to copy this list. First we take a pointer p1 pointing to the first node of this list. Now we allocate a new node with info equal to p1 info and we make p2 and start point to this node and we move p1 forward. Now we allocate a new node with info equal to p1 info, make p2 link point to this node and move p1 and p2 forward. Again we allocate a new node with info equal to p1 info, make p2 link point to this node and move p1 and p2 forward. Again we allocate a new node with info equal to p1 info, make p2 link point to this node and move p1 and p2 forward. Again we do the same thing. We make p2 link point to this node and we move p1 and p2 forward. Now p1 is null, so we will stop. Our loop will terminate. And we have copied this whole list. So this is how the code of a copy constructor works. Now with this copy constructor, let us run the code that we had written in our demo.cpp file. So this is our copy constructor and this is the code that we had written in this demo.cpp file. Let's run this. So now we don't have any problem in our program. The first node from this list L1 was deleted and these two lists are the same as before. We need to write a destructor also for our class to properly deallocate the memory occupied by nodes of the list. So here is our destructor. This is the code of the destructor. While start not equal to null, p equal to start link, delete start and then start equal to p. Let's go to the slide and try to understand how this code works and destroys our list. We need to destruct this list and this is the code for our destructor. Now start is not null, so we have to take a pointer p that is equal to start link. Start link points to this node, so p points to this node. Then we have to delete start, so this node is deallocated and then we have to make start equal to p, so start now points to this node. Again, this loop executes because start is not null, so p equal to start link points to this node, so p now points to this node. Delete start, this node is deleted and start equal to p. Again, this loop executes, p points here, this node is deleted and start points to this node. Again, start is not null, so this loop executes, p equal to start link, delete start and start points to this node. Start is still not null, so this loop executes, p equal to start link, so p is now null. Delete start, so this node is deleted and start equal to p, so start is also now null. Now start is null, so this loop terminates. And our list has become empty. And the memory occupied by all the nodes has been freed properly. So this is how our destructor works. Now we need to overload the assignment operator also for our class. Suppose here we had L3 equal to L1. So now the assignment operator will be called here. If we don't define our own version of assignment operator, then the compiler will synthesize one for us. But for our single linked list class, it will create problems similar to the ones created by the synthesized copy constructor. So here we have the code for our overloaded assignment operator. This piece of code is the code that destroys the list that is being assigned to. This is the same code that we wrote in the destructor. Then if this list L is empty, we just make start equal to null and return. After this, we have this code that copies the list. It is the same code that we wrote in our copy constructor. Now the return type of this function is void. It is not returning anything. So this assignment operator will not work if we used chained assignment operators. For example, here if we write L3 equal to L2 equal to L1, then we can see this error. No operator matches these operands. So now let's change the return type. Now we will return a reference to the left-hand operand, which is the invoking object. Let's change the return type in the header file also. So now we don't have that error, and this chained assignment operation will work. Let's run this again. So we can see that it works. Now while overloading the assignment operator, a self-assignment check is also put in the beginning of the function. So here let's put the self-assignment check. So now our definition of overloaded assignment operator is complete.